Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. This is a video about why the gear is not always enough to get the best sound. So bear with me, guys. So if I had to compare stuff on like a potential meter, it's my own way of describing quality. Let's just create a scenario here where 0 is the worst sound in the world, and 100,000 points, that's like the most optimal, best sound ever, best ever, best possible sound. So let's look at some gear here, some really top class gear. We've got Negra PLP preamplifier. I would say that this is one of the few preamplifiers in the world that's really, really, really good. That isn't Audio Note. I would say Audio Note clearly makes some much better preamplifiers, but if I had to choose a brand that wasn't Audio Note, but sadly doesn't work with a lot of other brands, I would take Negra. You need, of course, Negra gear to use this on, but one of the best preamplifiers out there. But I'm just trying to make a point, and that's this. This is most likely one of the 50 best preamplifiers in the world. I think that's pretty easy to say. And I would give this, probably around 60,000 points out of 100, out of 100,000. And that's based on its full potential if you max out that sound, okay? So what I'm saying is that even though you've used your hard-earned money, your pension, your daughter's life savings, not sending her to college or whatever, it's not enough just buying the gear. Because if you gave this to a regular guy with an average system, he has an average, okay, set of monoblocks, and he's set up in an average way. And like most people don't believe in cables and power bars and a good network and having a good streamer and stuff like that. It's just like a regular guy from the street. I would feel that typically you would only get a sound in the 10 to 20,000 point area, even though it has the potential of doing this. So what I'm saying is that these are the tools, okay? These are the tools, and you need to master your ability to use these tools, because they belong in a certain context. So you could actually, even though this is, this basically beats most preamplifiers in the world, you could get gear that is a lot cheaper that would still beat this. Because when you open up for this amount of detail that there is in a Negra PLP, you can easily do that in a wrong way, so you're opening up for the wrong type of detail, and you'll be hearing a lot of the existing disease that's in your system if you're not good at using that system to its highest potential. So I'm just saying, I would consider this like 60,000 points out of 100,000, which is ridiculously good. Most people in their life will never ever get to hear anything that's close to that. But I still think it will only be in this level. So I think we have to realize that with really good gear, it isn't just something that you get and then it does its thing and then it's 10 times better, Once we get up in this insanely good level of gear, and I'm not talking about the lower end gear, like Past Labs, Macintosh, stuff like that. That's still some pretty good gear, but it has more of a boosting compatible type of generalized sound where it kind of, I wouldn't say artificially boosts the sound, but it keeps it more in a safe range speaking more languages, like I shown you guys in my previous video. So let me just continue this message. And here, we've got the matching Monoblocks power amps, whatever you call them, one of the best ever in the world. And I would say without a doubt, at least in my opinion, this is one of the 50 best Monoblocks on planet Earth. Fantastically good. One of the best ever. I heard when I entered the HIFI arena, and I heard the top end gear. This is just some of the best stuff, but it can easily sound thin, analytical, and it can easily point out a lot of stuff that's wrong with your sound, and you might easily think that it's the gear, it's not warm enough, it's not developed enough, but it isn't. It is truly some of the very best gear on planet Earth that isn't Spectral, audio notes, Condo, stuff like that. And I still feel that this is also around 60,000 points, and in order to reach that level, 60,000 points, you really have to pair this with this. It's a matching thing, If you try and pair it with other stuff, it will most likely not get anywhere close to 60,000 of its full potential. If I would pair this with, like, I don't know, any random preamp that you maybe think is reasonably good, like a PS Audio preamp or a Macintosh or a Past Labs or Mark Levins, they make some, above standard preamps, but especially PS Audio, out of those that I mentioned, and the bigger model of Past Labs XP 30 and 32 preamp. I think that's a lot better than PS Audio. But what I'm trying to say is that even though they're a lot better than the standard out there, putting it on stuff like this will totally destroy the sound. And I think personally you would only get to about 20, perhaps if you're lucky, 25 point sound out of 100 if you paired it with this, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's just so difficult making that proper pairing. But if we look at stuff like the audio note on Gaku, I would believe that then we're dealing with something that has a potential of up to 90,000 points out of 100. But a lot of people aren't, even if they buy this thing, they aren't even gonna go to half of that. And I think that's what you have to kind of realize, is that a lot of people that aren't, for example, audio note fans or fans of other brands, they have to kind of realize with this ridiculous priced equipment, this probably costs like the amount of 3 medium class cars. You have to kind of realize that it's not enough just having tools. You have to develop some skill of using that tool. But an interesting thing I just want to point out to you guys is that I believe that this sound is it's just very different than Negra. I know that for a fact. And what is it that I'm trying to say? Yeah, even though that this Ongaku amplifier reveals more detail than the Negra, the fact that you have the preamplifier and the power amps integrated in it and not split where you have to use some random cables, and make that work with a sound that's more analytical, that immediately makes it more. It just makes it more possible for a wider set of people. We're not talking about a really wide group, but it becomes easier using that tool. than having to, be a hi-fi noob and trying to work with gear like Negra, people that work with Negra are many times not totally equipped. That's my experience. Not totally equipped to really deal with that sound. That is a pretty analytical and out there type of sound that really likes to put a magnifying glass on a lot of the small details, and it can so easily become thin and harsh and almost digital in a way. So I feel that at least when you're getting this package deal, that it's easier to be I wouldn't say a moron, a guy who doesn't know what he's doing, but it's easier to work that tool, And I feel that instead of going with, like what I said before, this 10 to 20,000 point sound on a regular system, I feel that you would more likely with this type of thing get in the 25,000 point area, because of the built-in preamp and power amp, because it's not being broken up, it's being kept original and true. So yeah, and if you would give this to a normal guy, this is just my opinion, but I feel that if you would give this to a normal guy that has an average audio note system at the lower levels, the level 1 to 3 systems, and they aren't the good 1 to 3 level systems, that they're like, I would say, the noobs of the audio note customers, the guys that don't necessarily, that haven't mastered that skill yet, I would say that my guess is that you would reach the 35,000 points out of 100. That's even though you've got a potential of it sounding almost 3 times better, And those are some pretty good systems, And what I'm trying to say is that, again, it's a tool you have to master. There's a lot of potential, and you mustn't give up. And when you then reach the better guys level at the level 3 in audio note, most people in the world, they would give an arm or a leg just to have a really good level 3 audio note system. That can basically beat, I would say, everything in the world, a good level 3 audio note system, especially if you really are like decent to really good to setting that up, having a decent room, having a just matching that properly and not using like a cheap streamer on it. I feel that you could then reach this level here. I think that's very realistic. But if we then get to like the upper audio note level 5 setups out there, which I don't know how many setups there are those in the world, but I'm guessing there's only like 100 of those setups in the world. That's just my guess. I'm guessing. But even with those setups, even with that gear, which is basically the best gear in the world, I still feel that you would only get 55,000 out of 90,000 of that sound, So isn't that funny? You just can't you can't just buy that amplifier or that speaker and then have that doing its thing, You still, to some big degree, have to figure out this game of coupling everything in the right way. And the freaky few that I have experienced, I feel that they can then reach around 80,000 points. But that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that there's still a lot from going from 80,000 points to 90,000 points. What I'm just saying is that don't feel that that's it, it stops there. It can continue with this type of gear. That's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I said that with the gear and the other stuff. So I just think it's interesting to notice that there's almost an unlimited amount of potential with gear like this. and being able to hear gear in this 35 to 80,000 point zone is not in any way normal, you know. Um, and I feel that in my opinion, people only hear sound on the 5,000 to 20,000 point area, and that's over the entire span of their life, which is, let's just say, 40 to 100 years of being able to listen to music. And maybe like 1% of society gets to hear then a sound that's up in the 30,000 point, you know. And then within that 1% of that, within that 1%, maybe 10% of that, sorry, there's this group that perhaps hears up to around 40,000 points. That's just me and my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but that's the impression that I get from talking to a lot of people, hearing a lot of systems, seeing them set their systems up, and just generally listening to the problems that they have. But I feel that, again, for me, I still feel that this is a tiny bit better than Audio Node Ongaku. I might be completely wrong, but for me personally, I like this personality a bit more, even though the parts in it aren't technically as good. And I just find that interesting, you know, because I just find that incredibly interesting, because usually I would associate, you know, the best parts with the best sound, and again, the potential is truly there, and I still feel that the Ongaku in a way beats the silver Maisho signature, but I feel that you have to kind of have a double Ongaku with the best preamp in the world to fully get that sound, you know. So that's just me, and also, of course, the O2 silver signature, you know. I feel that's also really like up there, close to that. But I'm just saying, it's funny how you can have something that's basically better like the Ongaku, but still this for me sounds better. And I think that has a lot to do with your ability to max out the sound and then pair it with your surroundings, how you're able to max that sound out. So yeah, stuff like Spectral gear, I would say that's up to 70,000 points. And sometimes you can even save a half bad speaker. I've heard that sometimes, and that's an amazing ability. I don't think a lot of top gear has that ability to do that. But again, just because you're getting like a Spectral preamp or Monoblocks doesn't mean that you're getting anywhere close to the 70,000 points area. You know, you might easily just get 15, 20,000 points, even though you have the newest, biggest Spectral power amps, and you perhaps have the Spectral CD player. You know, that isn't necessarily enough. You know, the cables matter a lot. The power bar. If you start to put a streamer on it and you have a regular preamp, you know, you could totally destroy the potential of that sound. So yeah, and again, you know, the best cable in the world, the very, very best cable in the world, which no one really owns. Perhaps I'm just guessing that 100 people in the world own this cable. Again, you know, you'd have to be within the first 1% of the audiophiles, the good audiophiles, to get to use that to your advantage. And then still you need some skills in order to harness that sound. And when you're able to do that, of course, you get off to a ridiculously high level. But let me just do an analogy here, and that's the fact that if we have a golf club here, like for example the latest King Cobra Ricky Fowler irons, They are insanely small and difficult to play with. There's just no help with these golf clubs. So the purpose of this golf club is not helping the golfer, but is doing the opposite. The purpose is ultimate reaction. Okay, meaning that you can hit the highest high shots, the lowest low, and shape the golf ball from right to left, left to right, and whatever, distance control, all of that stuff. And this is for people that are perhaps the 0.01% of golfers out there in the world. And then we have like the total opposite kind of golf iron here, And this is the thing that just helps the ball up in the air. It kind of generalizes the shot. It just shoots a cannon here, shoots a cannon over there. When you give a tool like this to a normal golfer, he will be able to maintain the accuracy and the distance control a lot better with a tool like this, But it will still be, to some degree generalized. But then when you turn into a better golfer, perhaps a bit like me, then you'll feel trapped when you're, going from this, because you rather want to try and play with stuff like this that can give you that better distance control, trajectory, spin, accuracy, all of that. So you probably have to find some middle ground between that. And I feel that it's a lot like with the HIFI world, where most people picking out HIFI gear is in the later category, this iron here, where we're having some form of generalized help to secure a standard, so we can have 1, 2, or maybe 4 things out of 10 types of detail that we really like. But as you can see, it has its price, like with the golf clubs here, and so if you're a handicap player, in 60 to 20 handicap player, you most likely need something like this. But then you need something from like a 20 plus handicap to around 0, which is something in between this and that. And then when you've reached, minus handicap, then you can play with stuff like that. Even your local pro most likely can't play with stuff like this. This is for the best of the best, And that's what I'm trying to say. This is a lot like HIFI gear, the lower end HIFI gear and then the highest high. You cannot just give this to someone and then it does the job, You need some skill of controlling that, to use that to your advantage. But I just want to read the rest here. Not a lot left, guys. So in golf, if you want ultimate precision, you have to work crazy hard on your skills, so you later can play a much more difficult iron that then reveals more what you're doing. But then having that is not enough, because it's just a tool, and you as a user have to hone that skill to use that tool so it becomes an edge, an advantage that works for you. So basically, you are putting yourself in a bad situation, in a worse situation, so you can potentially be in a much better situation. And that's a lot, that's a lot, relating to HIFI with the good gear. So, people like me that have a golf handicap of around 17 are just trapped in between those two things, because you can't necessarily go with the best gear in the world, because you need that skill of honing it, having that really good source, having that really good room, figuring out the proper way of connecting them so it sounds good. And again, if I would hit, what was it that I wrote here? I could hit perhaps 1 or 2 out of 10 shots with that top club that I showed you guys at the top, right? But that would only be like 1 or 2 shots out of 10 that was almost 100% planned or close to perfect, whereas the rest would probably be, if I used that club, 25 or 50 yards short of the target, or to the left or to the right, because they're just ultra revealing clubs that tell exactly what I'm doing wrong. And you know, the clubs that I would then choose, I would probably, you know, normally hit like, I don't know, an 8 iron around 160 yards with an iron like this. But if I used a regular, not a regular, but this top iron here, I would only get to hit a 8 iron 110 yards, 130 to 150 yards. And that's what I'm trying, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you just need the gear and you need the skill to hone in that sound. And of course, like with here, matching the Negra stuff with the Negra, having the proper room, having the proper power setup, having the proper network, having all of those unusual boxes that I talked about in my streamer video, doing all the stuff that nobody wants to do, that you need to do in order to hone that skill in. Because just buying that gear and setting it up in a room gives you the potential, and usually that is a lot that really raises the sound up to a high level. But getting to that end destination of what it can deliver, that full potential, it takes time, it takes skill, and that's the point that I was trying to make with this video. So I hope that helps you guys and puts things a bit more in perspective, so you guys can reach that ultimate sound. So this is me logging off. Have a nice day, and like and subscribe if you can.